Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are cutting through the noise to look at a company that saw one of the world's most intense urban crises, not as, a disaster, but as a blueprint for social innovation. We are diving deep into MAX.ng, or Metro Africa Express. And the story really starts with this huge paradox in Nigeria. It's Africa's largest economy, right? But all that potential is just constantly choked by infrastructure failure.
It really is. And to put a number on it, just think about this one fact from our sources.
The wild one.
Commuters in Lagos spend, on average, 30 hours a week stuck in traffic.
30 hours. That's essentially an entire second job just spent trying to move.
Exactly. And that physical gridlock is just one part of the story. On top of that, you have this deep human crisis, financial exclusion, and just staggering unemployment.
Right.
The official numbers put youth unemployment in Nigeria at around, 43%? So while the city is physically grinding to a halt, you have this huge population of young people who are locked out of stable professional work.
So Max looked at this dual reality, the physical and the economic gridlock.
And they saw that the existing solution, the informal motorcycle taxi system, the Okadas, it was completely dysfunctional. It was risky, entirely cash-based, and run by unvetted drivers with zero access to credit. No professional dignity.
So our mission today is really to unpack the genius behind Max's strategy, their pivots, from last-mile delivery to asset financing, and then, eventually building their own solar-powered infrastructure. We want to find those nuggets of knowledge that let them professionalize an entire informal sector.
And create economic mobility right alongside physical mobility.
Let's start with the founders then, Atayo Bamiduro and Chinedu Azoto. They met at MIT, but instead of staying in the U.S., they took that global expertise right back to Lagos.
With this amazing goal to help their generation do better. And that's a phenomenon we see a lot, this returning entrepreneurship. You get this global training combined with deep local grounding.
It's a powerful combination.
It's critical. But they didn't start with the flashiest idea. They launched in 2015, focused on last-mile logistics, just using tracked motorcycles to promise reliability for small businesses.
Promising parcel delivery within 3 hours, which at the time was revolutionary.
Totally.
But was the social mission always there? Or was it just a smart logistics play that kind of evolved?
No, it was baked in from day one. Max was built with two bottom lines from the very beginning. The logistics service was just the fastest, most reliable way to formalize the job of the motorbike rider.
I see.
Their long-term goal was always to create what they call better paths for these workers, to pull them out of that precarious, highly exploitative, informal economy. They had to make the job reliable, safe, and, respectable.
Okay, so that dual mission is the foundation, and that allowed them to pivot pretty quickly. The first big shift comes in 2017.
Right. They moved from delivering parcels to transporting people.
The birth of motorcycle ride-hailing. The Uber for two wheels.
Which was exactly what Lagos needed to beat the traffic. And by using GPS tracking, mandatory helmets, and trained riders, they immediately brought accountability and safety to a system that was, frankly, defined by risk.
But the rider on the Max platform was still just a contractor, right? They were probably still renting their bike, taking on all the risk.
Precisely. And that's the tension they had to solve. It led to their single most important strategic pivot, the one that really defines their whole social innovation model.
Asset financing in 2018.
That's the one. The core problem was that the vast majority of these informal riders, they just rented their bikes day to day. They had no equity, no autonomy, and their earnings were capped by these crazy rental fees.
So Max realized they couldn't sustainably professionalize the driver without giving them ownership.
They had to. So they essentially became a bank. They introduced this subscribe-to-own model.
Which sounds terrifyingly risky. You're talking about asset financing for unbanked people with absolutely no formal credit history. How on earth did they manage the default rates? What was the secret sauce?
The genius was using their own tech platform as the credit mechanism. Traditional banks want a paper trail. Max used behavioral data. They did partner with regional banks, sure, but Max provided the real-time risk assessment.
So the driver's performance, their safety record, their paying consistency, that became their credit score.
Exactly. The bike is the collateral, and the weekly or daily payments, which are automated through the platform, immediately start building that credit track record. It let unbanked workers get asset ownership and credit access at the same time.
That is brilliant, using operational data to solve financial exclusion. Okay, let's talk about the next big pivot around 2019, the green pivot.
The move into electric vehicles, EVs.
Developed with Yamaha, no less. Why was this so necessary? Wasn't it a huge risk, given Nigeria's infrastructure problems?
Well, it solved two critical problems at once. First, environmentally, petrol bikes are just massive polluters in dense cities. But second, and maybe more importantly for the drivers, fuel and maintenance costs were constantly eating away at their income.
So how much did the EVs actually help?
Our sources show that moving to their EV, the MAX.e Series 1, immediately cut a driver's operational and maintenance costs by about 40%.
40%. So that's not some theoretical saving. That is pure, tangible cash in their pocket every single day.
Every single day. But you're right to ask about the infrastructure risk.
Yeah, if you roll out an EV fleet in a market known for an unreliable power grid, aren't you just swapping high petrol costs for crippling charging downtime?
You would be if you were a typical Silicon Valley startup just dropping tech into a new market. But this is where MaxX's local adaptation is so key. They knew they couldn't rely on the national grid.
So they built their own.
They built their own. They invested in their own dedicated charging hubs equipped with solar panels, and this is the clever part, they implemented battery swapping stations.
Oh, so no waiting.
No waiting for hours. The driver just pulls up, swaps a depleted battery for a fully charged one in like a few minutes, and they're back on the road. And by using solar, they're hitting clean energy goals while making sure their driver's productivity isn't held hostage by the grid. It's a localized, self-sustaining ecosystem.
This all sounds incredibly capital intensive, though. Building your own solar infrastructure, running a financing arm. What did all this investment actually yield for the people on the ground? Let's quantify that social impact.
Well, the numbers are pretty compelling. Max has onboarded over 40,000 drivers across its market.
40,000. And think about the economic jump. Before, an informal driver might make as little as, what, $80 a month?
If that. Our sources confirm that drivers in the Max program now earn about 65% more than the informal market average.
65% more.
And that's just the start. Once they complete the subscribe to own payments and fully own that motorcycle, which is now their asset, their daily earnings can nearly double.
Wow. That's a life-changing, multi-generational economic shift right there.
It is. And beyond the raw income, you've got these non-monetary benefits that are crucial for what we call decent work, aligning with SDG 8. They get a certified credit track record for the first time.
Which is the key to everything else.
It's the key. It means they can get bigger loans later on for a better home, for their kids' education. They also get formal safety training and access to things that were unthinkable before, like health insurance and vehicle insurance.
They're moving from a really precarious gig to a formalized, protected career.
That's the goal. And for the public, the scale is huge. Max has completed over 450 million trips by 2024. That volume proves that a professionalized service can deliver safety and efficiency, even in the middle of total gridlock.
But the journey wasn't a straight line. They hit a massive wall, didn't they? The regulatory risk.
The ultimate stress test. In February 2020, the Lagos state government imposed a massive ban on commercial motorcycles in key areas. It crippled many of their competitors.
It could have killed Maxon. I mean, services like Okada had to lay off huge numbers of staff.
Some just shut down entirely. But this is the moment where Max's built-in diversification really proved to be genius. They survived because of two key moves.
Okay, well, really?
First, they already had that strong goods delivery and logistics arm. So when the passenger service was banned in Lagos, they just shifted focus, reallocated drivers, and kept revenue flowing. Second, they hit the accelerator on their geographical expansion.
So they just moved into other cities while managing a crisis at home. That sounds incredibly difficult.
It was incredibly fast. They immediately pushed into other Nigerian states that weren't affected by the ban, and they just doubled down on their international expansion. Today, they're in over 16 cities across 3 countries: Nigeria, Ghana, Côte d'Ivoire.
They diffused the risk. They didn't put all their eggs in one politically unstable basket.
Remarkable agility. They turned a policy disaster into a catalyst for Pan-African growth.
So looking back at this whole journey, what are the big lessons here for anyone interested in tech or social enterprise?
Well, the first one is structural. You have to diversify your funding and your partnerships. Max didn't just rely on VCs. They had accelerators, they had global impact investors like Lightrock, and critical technical partners like Yamaha. That breadth gives you capital stability and, just as important, deep expertise.
And I love this next lesson, which is about dignity and perception. They have this principle, make it look nice, not cheap.
Yes. Their bikes are sporty, distinctive, well-maintained, And that's not vanity. It's free, rolling marketing. It
Mhm.
boosts rider pride, and it fundamentally changes how the public sees the service. It's a professional offering, not a dangerous gig.
Right. And the final lesson.
A commitment to the circular economy. By thinking about the full life cycle of their vehicles, including planning to convert existing petrol bikes to electric, they're showing a real commitment to long-term sustainability. It cuts waste and even creates new revenue streams.
It's just a phenomenal case study. MAX.ng isn't just a transport company. It's a blueprint for a social enterprise that built its own financial systems, its own energy grid, and its own supply chain to solve those twin crises of unemployment and infrastructure failure.
Absolutely. They demonstrate how profit and purpose can intersect. You see decent work, you see clean energy from their solar hubs, and you see more sustainable cities. They prove that if you improve mobility in a city, you can radically improve the economic mobility of its citizens.
And that brings us to our final thought for you to consider. If a two-wheeled service, powered by some clever tech and smart financing, can formalize an entire economy and lift tens of thousands out of poverty in Africa's largest market.
What other essential underserved sectors globally are ripe for this exact same kind of technology-driven social intervention?
Think about it. Agriculture, sanitation, localized power access. Where is the next MX.in going to emerge? Thanks for joining the deep dive.
Thank you for listening to Mission Possible, innovating for the world's most marginalized. This podcast is built on the outstanding work of our students, whose curiosity and commitment drive much of the research and storytelling you hear. Each episode is grounded in academic research and shaped through close collaboration with our partners. To learn more about the research and partnerships behind this podcast, feel free to contact us. Thank you for joining.